K-pop demon hunters Haja Boy's breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, the podcast for all things neurodivergence. I'm Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist and professional speaker, and I'm happy to be your host through the wild trails of the neurodivergent world.
And I'm Jake Noonan, educational coach and humanities teacher, your co-host and producer, and I'm thrilled to help share the stories and the experiences of wonderful people in the world of neurodiversity.
We're really excited for today's guest, which we are going to say a lot because we're always really excited about every guest we get. So let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out on Neurodiversity. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist, professional speaker, published author, wearer of many hats, including, of course, hosting this lovely podcast, with my co-host, the Milhouse Van Houten to my Bart Simpson, Mr. Jake Noonan. Say hi, Jake.
Hey, everybody. Great as always to be here. I feel like that reference for Simpsons, isn't Milhouse, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a huge Simpsons person, I'm more Futurama. Milhouse is like the blue-haired, like, weird one, right?
You got it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
You wear glasses. It's perfect.
I did have purple hair, too, so I mean, it kind of fits.
The next time we do one, I will do a Futurama reference. So you can look forward to that, listeners. Zoidberg. So our guest today is probably, the word dynamo gets used too much, but Julie Skolnick is truly a force of nature. And I had a conversation with Julie about being on her show the day after my son was born. And she looked at me, she said, "Why are you talking to me?" And I said, "Well, I want to be on your show." And the other question, she's like, "I respect that. You're crazy. Go back to bed." I said, "Okay, Julie." So we have from just the entire gifted community, the incomparable Julie Skolnick. Julie, so thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Matt, wearer of many, many hats and beloved human that you are. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to sit down and talk to you because we do it anyway. We might as well record it.
Right? All we need is Mr. Sam. We could be like when we would be like last summer when we were in Berkeley.
Yeah.
So, Julie, you may be the only person in the gifted world who does more things than me. So tell everybody who you are and, edited for time, all the things you do.
Yeah, I love to say when people say, "Give me your elevator speech," I'm like, "I'd love to, but my building is very, very tall." So I'm going to do the short elevator speech. But anyway, hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're here nerding out with us because that means you care about neurodiversity and my lane, which is twice exceptionality. And that really sums it up. Anything that has to do with twice exceptional or my book title, Gifted and Distractible, that's what I do, whether it's with parents, with adults who are identified as 2E, training teachers, working with clinicians to further understand the profile. I work directly one-on-one. I work in groups. I have memberships. I speak a ton. I have a free newsletter, blah, blah, blah. Go to withunderstandingcomescalm.com and you'll learn all about it. Pack snacks because I've been doing this for a while. So there's a lot to see. And that's pretty much my elevator speech. How'd I do, Matt?
That was great. We didn't even make it all the way to the penthouse. That was solid. Now, Julie, you're a lawyer by training.
True.
How do you get from law school, Julie, to 2E advocate warrior Wonder Woman? What was the gap? What's the bridge there?
Wait, I got to write that down. 2E advocate warrior woman. That might be the best title I've ever heard. Thank you for that.
And just so you know, it was Wonder Woman.
Oh, Wonder Woman. Also warrior, gotta say, but okay, Wonder Woman. Love it. Okay, love it. You can compare me to Gal Gadot any day of the week. So it's a great question. Actually, a lot of stops along the way. And all you lovely neurodiverse people or parents of neurodiverse people, which might actually mean that you're also neurodiverse. But anyway, you probably understand, right? Like, who wants to do the same thing all the time? And in this role, I do something different every single day of my life, which I love. But how did I get there? Which was your question. I raised 3 gorgeous, twice exceptional kiddos. They are currently 24, 22, and 16. And I realized pretty soon that people were not getting my beautiful children. People weren't sometimes even liking my beautiful children. And how could that possibly be? In particular, my middle guy, who is now a very cool optical engineer student, he was really misunderstood and he used to self-define, Dr. Matt, I think I've told you this before, as ADHH, HH, HH, HHD. That was how he defined himself at 9. And silly mom went down the road exclusively of ADHD because it sounds so horrible. Like I needed to figure that horrible attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I had to figure that out. And I quickly realized it was pretty glass half empty, as well-meaning as people are and as much as people want to help. It was very deficit focused. And it was when I landed in gifted land that I realized, whoa, there's a whole other perspective, mind shift, positive reframe that could be done. And that informs every single thing I do to this day. And it's when I hung out my shingle with Understanding Comes Calm. I met with a neurodevelopment pediatrician who I explained to him everything I thought gifted meant versus what most people think gifted means, like all the things other than smart.
Mm-hmm.
And this beloved pediatrician opened his Rolodex and said, "Oh my God, Julie, you just taught me stuff that I didn't know. Please call everybody I know and tell them I sent you." And that's how I started, literally. So big shout out to the fabulous Dr. Dan Shapiro.
Well, we love Dr. Dan Shapiro. Yes, I'll send him a fruit basket. And it's amazing because a lot of parents that I work with, they're sort of forced into these advocacy roles, right? Like I find that to be true whether they are neurodivergent themselves or not. But they're like, I didn't ask for this. Why do I need to know what an IEP is or a 504 plan or what the hell is FAPE? But then it's like, oh my gosh, like I have to do this. I might as well get good at it. But there's this idea of like, but I'm just a mom or I'm just a dad or I'm just grandma. Like, did you deal with any of that? And if so, how did you overcome it?
So it's really interesting. I'm thinking about that in 2 different ways, right? We have our own speech in our head, right? We have our own positive or negative self-talk. And that's one way. Like, did I think to myself, I'm just a mom? Or are people saying you're just a mom? And truth be told, you started by saying you're a lawyer. How did you get to where you are? And I kind of told you the why I got to where I was, not so much the how I got to where I was or where I am, but I really wanted to pay it forward. I really wanted to shortcut the 3 years that I spent going down the ADHD rabbit hole before I found the positive reframe, strength-based. And rather than people saying you're just a mom, it really gives a lot of credibility because not only do I understand from an academic practice point of view, dude, I'm living it. I'm living it. In fact, one of the impetuses for me to start with Understanding Comes Calm, hang out my shingle, was when we had to pull our beautiful child out of a school, a community school, a parochial school. So it included our community. It was really hard to make this decision. And the learning specialist said to me when we made that decision, would you work with parents on how to advocate for their kids? Because I was advocating 24/7, Matt. This school was not set up for my kiddo as much as we wanted it to be. And I had to figure out how to collaborate. And I came from a place of, I guess, humility, where I was like, dude, people, this is complicated. It's complicated to parent my kid. It's complicated to teach my kid. How about we're on the same team? And so I actually do a lot of that collaboration work with parents and teachers together. And I firmly believe in it. And if anybody isn't taking a just mom or just dad or just caregiver seriously, yeah, that's a problem. And so we just have to keep on keeping on, because you are the expert on your kiddo.
I mean, and really, I open every therapy intake with saying, like, you're the expert of you. I know all the psychology stuff. Let's meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think we live in this society where it's like either I win or you win. There's no middle ground. And it's funny because, like, a lot of times when I work with schools, and I'm sure you've dealt with this too, like they come in like, oh, look at this hired gun in his suit. He's here to like get us to write a big check. And it's like, listen, if we can keep this kid in this school, let's do it. That works for everybody. I'm here to facilitate that conversation. And if we cannot keep the kid here, where do we go from here? I'm a public school kid. I love public school. I think it's one of the best things that we do. As one of the top 3, as Jake has added a 4th to our list of good things our country does. I just made Jake snarf, everybody. We're very pleased with this.
We love garbage men.
We love garbage men. National parks, public libraries, public schools, and garbage pickup, as Jake has added to our list of things. But yeah, I mean, why would we not want to work with a school and collaborate? You and I taking a collaborative, communicative approach rather than scorched earth, I think is probably why we're both so successful at what we do.
I think so too. And I think there's a little bit of realistic sort of check. A lot of people live in these bubbles where expectations are completely inappropriate and, like, whoa, let's dial it back and get to know this kid. One of my favorite things to say to teachers and parents is find the hardest kid to love and love them the hardest.
Uh-huh.
But there is one enormous exception, which I experienced with my kids in various times, which is when there's a very toxic environment. And then it's like there's only so much amount of time that we try to collaborate, and we do try to collaborate. We do try to educate. But one of the questions I tell my parent clients to ask at their first back to school night or parent teacher conference is, so tell me what you love about my kid, or tell me when you see my kid shine. And if the teacher's like, there's a problem. Right. And so now we need to figure out what's the problem. How do we help educate? Right. Matt, my cycle for success, understand strategies, advocacy. That's how my book is arranged. That's how my practice is arranged. This deep understanding, we have to really advocate for people to understand our kids because they're complex. And especially when they're twice exceptional and there's that asynchrony, it's kind of unexpected that this kid who can code, can't freaking get out the door. Right. It's like, oh, it must be willful. And it's that change of mindset of why that might be happening and the layers of complexity that are really important for people to understand. And truth be told, teachers are not trained for this population. So we do find ourselves in that advocacy role you described so well.
When you think about the kids that are hardest to love, often ask for love in the hardest ways.
Good way to say it.
Yeah, Jake and I have brought this kiddo up a couple of times, but when we met this kiddo, the only way he knew how to engage with us was to kick me in the shin. So he'd come up to me and then he'd kick me in the shin, be like,
not so lovable, Matt. Not so lovable.
You know what? But I was a soccer player for many, many years, and I'm very used to being kicked in the shin. And my orthopedist was like, your shins are more scar tissue than bone. I'm like, you're welcome. I'm like Wolverine.
Just with worse healing a little bit.
Significantly worse healing. But it's the sort of thing, as easy as it was to get irritated at him, and it was very easy to get irritated with him, it was also one of those things that behaviors communication. The only way this kid knew how to engage with the grownups that he wanted to love him was to kick us. So over time, we shaped that behavior. And now I see him as an adult man, and I'm just like, you're a super functional, successful person. And we played a small part in that because it would have been so easy to be yet another adult who just put that kid in the garbage heap, right? Just this kid's a problem kid. This kid's he's bad attitude, whatever words you want to use. I'm sure we could go through the student feedback from all 3 of your 2E kiddos and be like, oh, there's some gems of descriptions in there.
And me too. And me too as a kid. I think you people, psychologists, you refer to this as maladaptive behavior. I think that's what you say. See, I have this really awesome benefit of not being a psychologist, of being a 2E advocate Wonder Woman. And I really look at this behavior and the way to respond instead of react as a relief, as permission to parent differently, as permission to teach differently, right? Like, oh my God, if my colleagues see me giving this kid another chance, aren't they thinking I'm enabling him? Oh my gosh, if my neighbor, my partner, my spouse, my mother-in-law sees me giving this kid another chance, aren't I just too soft, right? And I, there's a lot of reasons to do things differently with neurodiverse kids.
Yeah, it demands it.
100%.
Special requires special interventions. Yeah, but it's funny. Like I referred a family to you several years ago now, and I was like, listen, you can keep working with me and get to the bottom of this and figure out the rationale for it, and there's value in that, or you can work with Julie and get shit done. And they were like, oh, we want to get shit done. I was like, here's her phone number and here's her email. With understanding comes calm.com. And they were like, thank you.
Well, and you're so sweet. People out there listening, one of the great things about the professionals in this field is we all lift each other up. And Matt is one of the greatest lifter uppers, probably from, pre-show, we were talking about our experience in rugby, but he is a great lifter upper. And we do love to refer to each other, which is really gratifying when you have people you totally trust and you can just say, this person's going to get you what you need. Because both Matt and I are about the now what.
Yeah.
Let's do the now what.
Can I also expand on that a little bit?
Go for it.
To throw other positive compliments to Dr. Matt.
I'm not the guest on this episode.
That's okay. He also, to reflect on that, he also, in a sense, helped save me as well and give my life a lot more meaning at the same time. Because after teaching for 10 years, I was like, I don't know what I want to do next. I don't know what's going to happen. And here I
That's awesome, Jake. I didn't know that. Yay.
So I've got Dr. Matt to thank for a lot of things.
Y'all are going to make me cry.
We need our people. We need our people to do the things we do. And Jake, okay, we're just going to have a big fat love circle. Jake, Matt really needs you. So thanks for letting him do all the 50 billion things he does because he has you. And I know because my team, Brad and Chris, I don't know what I'd do without them.
Appreciate that.
And honestly, let's tug on that thread for a second, because we've covered a lot of these topics. Julie, one of the things I really struggled with as I went from speaking consulting as sort of a side thing I did to a big part of my identity was hiring a team. Oh my God, do I need an assistant? Who the hell am I? Some schmuck from the Jersey Shore to have an assistant. So if there's people out there listening being like, wait, I too could be like Julie Skolnick and Dr. Matt someday. What was it like for you hiring a team, and what's it like managing people? Because I'm going to guess that was not part of your life plan.
So as an entrepreneur, as a neurodiverse entrepreneur, I like doing things my way. So hiring and also managing, two totally different things. Hiring, I'm great at. I can read a resume. I can go through hundreds of resumes in 10 minutes. I have a whole process. I do it. I know how to do it. I know the questions I need to ask. That I can do. So my law degree actually was in labor and employment law. So that's also kind of helpful. Also, my law focus was advocacy. So all of that is very helpful. The hard part, guys, is managing, is taking your perfectionism, Matt, relatable, and dialing it back a little bit, because expectations you have for yourself may not translate into actually appropriate expectations you might have for other people who are humans. So that's been a learning curve, really, to be honest. And finding people who are really dedicated to the cause and very passionate and interested in the cause has been really important. and knowing what I needed. So I've gone from like one person to two people to three people. And now I'm in two people. And how do we prioritize? I mean, I could work 24/7 and my staff could too. But, really figuring it out and really prioritizing quality of life. And I think that has been really liberating for me. And it took a little while. I've been doing what I'm doing for 12 years. And so it took a little while. I didn't have anybody work with me for probably 4 years. I did all on my own, everything. And that was also a good learning curve because then you know what can be done and how people can know more than you, which is really good when people know more than you. So yeah, I think all of those things came into play. Do I need somebody? How do I fit that in? How do I then manage them? How do I keep my perfectionism at bay? How do I say things? How do I email or not email or text or not text and create boundaries? In fact, my beautiful, wonderful executive assistant, who is like my frontal lobe, she told me yesterday she's going to be gone for a week in October. And I was like, okay, all I need to know is if I text you during that time because I want to make sure I don't forget something, will that be stressful? Because I won't expect you to respond, but will it be stressful for you to see that? Right? Like that never would have dawned on me. And that's an important question to ask. And because she's awesome, she was like, no, of course, text me.
Oh, I love that so much. I think for a lot of people, it's like there's this, it's sort of the, to use the word perfectionism again, one of the things that I've always hidden in for my perfectionism was the like, if I have to put actual effort into this, it's scary. So I'm happy to vomit out a rough draft and submit it. Like a lot of times when I'm applying for conferences, it's like, you need like a mission statement. I won't apply to that one. But if I can like copy and paste the thing I talk about every single time, and there's learning objectives, I've got those memorized, I can do that. Like when like I can feel the edge of that curve, right? Like, that zones of proximal development, like, oh, nope, this is the danger part. I don't like this part. And I know for me, like there was a place to hide as it pertained to my like professional identity, as long as I didn't have help, as long as I didn't take it that seriously as an entrepreneur, to use your words. But then it's like, but I can't handle this on my own. So I have to deal with my perfectionism, even like failing because I can't handle it on my own, or having to put my hand up and say I need help, expertise that I don't have. And as I said to my wife at the time, like, or I could just change my name and move to Uruguay.
Yeah, but reality check, Matt. Aren't there times when you're like, fingers on chin, can I actually do this? Am I good enough? And I'm sorry, you've done it 450,000 times before. Why can't you do it now? Like, I get that. And I'll be like, wait a minute. You've done all these things. Like, you know what you're doing. This is just the same thing in a different audience. You might be answering different questions, but hello, this is your passion area. This is what you do, right? So there are times when you kind of get in your own way and you really don't have to. And it comes back to that positive self-talk, right? You made me think of something that I wanted to add. Can I add something?
Obviously.
So one thing that I do with my staff that I think is super duper important and is very me is when I get an email from parent client, an adult client, a teacher client who's like, you've changed our lives. I cannot even believe, do you live in my house? I read your book. Do you live in my house? I send it to my staff and I say, no way could this happen without you. This is the meaningful work you're doing. Because I really, at the end of it all, when I said I could work 24/7, it's because I want to. That's a big problem. I thank God I have other things that I love to do, because I feel like our work, Matt, don't you? Sometimes it's overwhelming. Like, oh my God, this is so important. And it's very humbling. And then it's like really, really fulfilling and completely motivates you because you realize what you know so well, which sometimes our perfectionism makes us doubt. What you know so well is so freaking important and unique to the people you're working with. It's such a blessing what we do.
It really is, honestly. And that to me is so much about, the intersection of perfectionism and imposter syndrome, right? They're very well defined.
Yeah.
Because our brains crave novelty. So a thing that seemed fascinating and interesting a long time ago, if you say it 500 times, your brain's like, well, that's not new. And because it doesn't feel new to me, it must be boring for my audience.
Right.
But even today, when I was talking with my friends at West New York School District, I was talking about, the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And this woman goes, wait, there's a word for that? And she wrote it down. I had this little spark of like, holy shit, this is still new to some people. And not from a place of arrogance, but from a place of like, this message still has value. Even if my brain's like, that was so 2 seasons ago. Like, no, the death of expertise has not happened yet.
Dude, I was training teachers yesterday and I had exactly an hour. Like, God bless those teachers, because actually, I think it's in New Jersey, right? Walls School District is in New Jersey.
Oh, Walls. I mean, that was near where I grew up.
Okay, so I was training those teachers. I have a great relationship with the school district. I do a lot of training with them. And so they had an hour, and God bless those teachers, because they went from faculty meeting to me to today is the day. This was yesterday. Today is the day their students start, right? And I'm locked in and I'm doing emotion dysregulation and I'm diving in deep and I'm telling all the things and I'm saying all the things. And afterwards, the first question was, so how do TUI kids get identified? I was like, well, that's a great question. Like I was like all in, like in the deep end, and it was just like, yeah. Context. What is this diagnosis? I mean, we went through all of that, but like, how does that actually happen? How do other people know that TUI is TUI, right? It was such a it was such a great question. What's my role as a teacher in like identifying, what if I suspect, in law school, we had a great weird citation here, but a great famous case on pornography. I know it when I see it, one of the judges said, right? So I felt like saying, we know it when we see it, right? You got this kid who's like incredible superpowers in some area, and then you're like, really? And that kind of defines it.
My go-to for that is when I talk to room teachers, I was like, is there any kid in this building that pisses you guys off? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, let me guess, where's my humanities teachers? And the humanities teachers, and I was like, okay, you hate this kid, and where's my STEM teachers at? And the STEM teachers are, you guys love this kid. They're like, yes. I'm like, he's one of ours, like almost certainly. I observed a kid at his school once, like they were like, we're pretty sure this kid's gifted. So I observed, I was like, yeah, like a lot of signs there. We'll make sure we do this. And then as I'm moving the room, I see legs sticking out from underneath a desk, like the wicked witch of the East. And I stopped and I looked down, and the kid was laying on the ground, taking his test, using the bottom of his chair as the table. I was like, I also need to test this kid.
And yay, teacher, for letting him do that.
Right. And so like, the little girl was, I think like 137 IQ, classic gifted kid. The boy, his IQ was 152 and unsurprisingly, very ADHD. And, we were able to get this kid a lot of supports and help him be really successful. And that their head of school was like, I never would have thought for that word for that kid. And I'm like, because just like you said before about ADHD doesn't encompass enough to really understand and serve our kids. We've got to really understand what is everybody's flavor of neurodivergence, how many boxes are they checking, because the more complete view we get, the better we can serve a kid, including if that means he's got to take tests laying on the ground, so freaking be it. Who does that bother?
Right. Exactly. Right. What's your goal? I always come back to. And I have a chart that I developed called the uncanny likeness between giftedness and ADHD, which goes right to environment. The bored gifted kid looks like the distracted ADHD kid. Exactly. And so how do we tweak the environment rather than tweaking the kid first? Yeah. So the environment was tweaked to let that kid lay on his back and take the test upside down, which is gorgeous. I love it.
Yes. Whenever I tell a story like this, I always reach out to people involved, like, hey, I'm going to like disguise some pieces of it, but like, I want to tell this story. And the kid was like, absolutely. The parents like, absolutely. The teacher was like, if you use my name, I'll murder you. I'm like, great. So I don't even say the name of the school. And I know you listen to this podcast, person's name at school, redacted.
That's a good school too.
Oh, redacted prep.
But what a bummer, because that is the thing that actually should be lauded, that this teacher isn't distracted by that, totally leans into the kid. The amount of struggle that teacher avoided by just letting the kid do that is huge.
And I think that people get into, and this is applicable to the parent piece, the education piece, and frankly, also the mental health piece, is like the therapy I do doesn't look like therapy. I can't tell you how many times I've spent 45 minutes of a session talking to a kid about deep Pokemon lore. And then the last 5 minutes, we talk about social skills. But it works because that's what these kids need. It is a atypical intervention to have a kid wanting to read Chaucer in third grade, right? It's an atypical intervention to have a kid who is in middle school playing in the high school marching band. When we think about environments, the environments we create and the environments we put our kids in are about maximizing their happiness to maximize their ability. And it's got to be that direction. It can't be the other way.
Right. And we maximize their happiness by using their passions, their interests. When we're recording this in September 2025, so it's the fall and everybody's transitioning back to school. But when it's time to head into summer break and parents will be like, so what executive functioning camp should I put my kid in? I'm like, no. Learn executive functions way better and stickier if they do it through their passions, where they have to prioritize, organize, follow through, turn stuff in, whatever, because they care, because there's motivation. And what you're talking about is my first letter of my praise paradigm, which are my 6 categories of strategies, which starts with personal connection. And what you're developing in your session are these deep personal connections, which then fosters trust. And however long your 45-5 is going to flip and be 45 of therapy, 5 of play eventually, because they're going to trust you. And parents, the same thing. I spend a lot of time, weird as it might sound, helping parents figure out how to, what I call, shine a spotlight on their kiddo and spend quality time where they're not asking, when will you, why don't you, why won't you, why can't you, type of questions.
Yeah. One of my golden rules is I say to parents, like, if it was a question that would have driven you crazy when you were a teenager, don't ask it to your kid.
It's good litmus test.
And parents were like, what? I was like, well, we were all teens once. Why are you doing that? I don't know. I'm swimming in hormones and my prefrontal cortex isn't developed. Damn it, Mom.
Be so helpful if they answered that way, right?
If only.
My neurology is different.
You know what? I am just swimming in hormones and I'm sweaty and uncomfortable and I need a minute. You know what? That's great. That context helps me help you. You go that way. I'll call you when I'm ready. Well, Jake, I've been rattling on a lot. You should ask a question.
No worries at all. I wanted to touch on that whole conversation just now of like focusing on the teachers for a second, of like, from a teacher's perspective, knowing that there's a lot that you have to do in classes. Like I taught in the Philly public school for a bit, and classes of like seven classes each day with maybe 20 minutes of a prep period if you get that. And then in those classes, the lowest number was like 34 kids. So in environments like that, knowing that these teachers, theoretically speaking, and I'm hoping realistically speaking as well, would like love to do all of these differentiations for everybody and like be willing to see the kid for who they are. I'm also thinking about like the kid that you're talking about, Dr. Matt. Like if I'm in a Philly school district and I've got 34 kids and I had some sitting like on the windowsill because we didn't have enough chairs, like I can't imagine being like, yes, you can totally sit on the floor where I'm not going to be able to see you at all, under a chair looking up, and I'm trying to manage all of these other people. So in that kind of like perspective, I'm almost curious, what would you say for teachers in those kind of like more intense environments where it's so many demands, so many like social, cultural, everything on them?
Yeah. And most teachers are like that. I mean, when I train teachers, I assume that they're like that. So I have so many strategies, Jake, but the place to start is always the personal connection. So that means, first of all, when you know you have a kiddo coming up who has a rep, and as much as we try to be objective and we try to start tabula rasa, clean slate, we know we're hanging out in the teacher's lounge, we're friends, we know. So that kiddo who you know is a challenge, has been a challenge on the playground, in the hallway, in the science lab, wherever, all the time, that's the one who's the hardest to love, that you have to love the hardest. And how do you do that? So if you know that ahead of time, and every time I talk to teachers and I train teachers, I say, huge caveat, you have the most important job on the planet and the least amount of time to do it. I'm going to make some suggestions, whatever lands, that's what you need to do for you. So one is you might send a card with a photograph of yourself, depending on how old the kids are, right? To introduce yourself, to help that child like actually have a connection and know that you care. You might decide you're going to make a 10-minute phone call, set it up with the parent, and be able to ask the kid what makes you tick and what ticks you off. You might do that for 5 minutes before class, after school, before recess, during lunch, whatever, to make that personal connection. That is the most important thing, because especially for 2E kids, if they think you care and you get them, and by the way, they have these extra antennae that tell them whether or not you like them or get them. If they think you do, they will be so loyal to you. They will want to do the things you want them to do. So this is kind of that, make the effort in the front end, right? Okay. So that's one thing, is to figure out how can you, and also, by the way, parents who are listening to this, I talk about making deposits in bank accounts. So to parents, make a deposit in the positive perspective bank account. How can you help teachers see your child positively, which I mean literally see your child? Send photographs of your, or videos or whatever, up short, of your child breaking the board in Taekwondo, putting together the amazing Lego thing, reading the book, volunteering in the homeless shelter, not like holding up your Lego thing, holding up your book, arm around the homeless person, but actually doing the thing. Because the classroom often is where our 2E kids don't shine. And it is an irony. And so if parents, you can help teachers see what your child looks like, and at the same time, let them know about a passion, the teacher then can say, hey, Jake, I saw you broke that board in Taekwondo. Dude, way to go. And now Jake's like standing a little taller and feels a connection. And maybe there's a way that the teacher, if it's a math teacher, how many Taekwondo kicks plus how many times, just weaves things in that are relevant, right? And for teachers, I tell teachers to deposit in the trust bank account, sending information about, especially a 2E child or a complex child, what was positive? What did the child do? Even if it's just the person who raises their hand to help pass out papers, the one on the playground who takes a new kid into their group, whatever it is, because that builds trust between parents. There's this triangle, right? The parent-teacher triangle. And we have to nurture relationships between all of them, which means parents take an interest in teachers. What do they love? Why do they do what they do? If they love some certain kind of baked food and you have a bakery nearby and you can get them a gift card, oh my gosh, how lovely. I mean, literally, I tell parents to bring cookies to parent-teacher meetings because teachers are beat up and they're not trained for these kids. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Jake.
No, it does. And it brings up another one as well. And I just want to touch on like the not being trained aspect as well. I was obviously thrown into the deep end because Dr. Matt and I were both working at a gifted school, twice exceptional school. But in college, throughout like the teaching training, I was only given like one class on special ed. And it wasn't even like, let's dive deep into it. It was like, what is special ed and what's the legality behind it? With a couple things about like what it is. So I think we spent maybe like 20, 30 minutes total in the entire semester on giftedness.
Probably deficit focused and probably didn't even include gifted, right? In special ed, which it should, but didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so that wasn't my favorite class, obviously. Yeah, right? But the question I have for you is like, how, like looking back, I remember parents, teachers, students, that like triangle you were talking about was really strong in elementary school, like everywhere. Every elementary school teacher I knew, they were like, oh, my parents brought me like this, they brought that, like I communicate with them all the time, like love their kid, they come in for like conferences and everything. But then something happens where it's like middle school era, if not like into high school, where that starts to fall away more frequently. And I was wondering, like, what's your perspective on that? Like, why is that potentially happening?
It's a great question. And literally before getting on this podcast, I was working with a client who has a child at a school where they very much dissuade parents in middle school and high school. And that is such a bummer. That culture is so toxic. When you push parents away, you're like, hey, you know everything I should know. Don't talk to me. That doesn't make any sense.
Because it don't make my life easier in any way.
Exactly. I'm going to assume you're going to be a helicopter parent and a pain in my ass, right? Oops, did I say that word? We said we were going to do that, so I did it. Anyway, so it happens for a couple reasons. Number one, the culture of the school dissuades that. Number two, if the child is the youngest and so the other kids are out of the house and you just kind of forget. Yeah, right. I should be there. Like, is there something I need to do? And also, our kiddos sometimes push us away and don't want us to be so involved. So that can happen, which means everybody has to make an intentional effort. Everybody has to include the child and, first and foremost, make the child feel like they're the most important part of that triangle. But then nurture the relationships with everybody is super important. And when you get in that adolescence, and by the way, my theory is, and Dr. Matt, you can put your doctorness on this and tell me if I'm right, but I think adolescents are such pains because it's making it easier for the parents to let them leave the house, like be a jerk so that it's easier for me to say goodbye.
It does feel like it's a necessary splitting that must take place. And one of the things that I often tell parents is that you've got to be their parent. You can't be their friend.
Right.
Like I tell my kids all the time, I love you. I'm your, I will run through a brick wall for you. I am not your friend. I'm your therapist, which means that sometimes I'm going to tell you some uncomfortable truths. And sometimes I'm going to hold you accountable. And when your friend like, it's cool. You didn't show up to coffee. Don't worry about it. Where I'm like, you let a person down. We should talk about what happened there.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing. Like, I think we've lost the nuance. We've lost the space between
boundaries.
Yeah. Well, there's really, because it's like, I'm either loving on my kid or I'm holding my child accountable. And it's like, the reason they describe therapy as love and boundaries is that it's a way to test drive what it feels like to be unconditionally loved and to have somebody put in loving boundaries for you. And without going from, what I always say, you either dig in or give in. So parents are like, I either have to fight this kid to the death, or I'm like, do whatever you want. Like, don't eat dinner, play video games all night. I'm tired of having this fight with you. Whereas, like, if you get to know that kid, if you get below the surface, the reason for them playing video games all night will become very apparent to you. And then you can intervene in a meaningful way.
Right. And why it matters. So I love that you brought that boundary idea up. And it's true. Parents and teachers, too, need to have a boundary where they're working together toward a shared goal. And so it's really everybody's boundary, right? Teachers and students are working toward a shared goal. Parents and children are working toward a shared goal. And why does it matter? It might be different. And so that needs to be talked about, that context, that meaning. And that actually helps everybody be their best selves because, with understanding comes calm. My business is called that for a reason, because it's freaking true in every situation. In a marriage, it's true. I want to feel understood. I want to feel like I understand my partner. I want to feel like my partner understands me, and my partner wants to feel like he understands me, right? So with a parent and a child, with a teacher, with a clinician, all of those are really, really important, which means we have to take a second and actually help people understand what matters to me personally and to you personally.
Yeah. And if you keep what matters in your heart, I think you'll always be guided in the right direction. The choice you make may not be easy, but I always find as a parent that, like, when I feel like I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses or I feel very aware of what everybody else in my town is doing, that's when I feel misaligned with the kind of parent and person I want to be. If my kiddo doesn't want to do T-ball like all the other boys, okay, right? Like, that's fine. Like, what does he want to do instead? Right? Versus like, but what if the other children are doing? And it can be a lonely road.
Yeah. And even I'll say something even more generic, which is like, my kid needs to stand at the dinner table. And since my goal for dinner is that A, my kid eats protein, and B, we create a family community and have a conversation, sitting or standing doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. I can choose to focus on the things that need to matter, not the things I think matter.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage to be that parent.
It really does. And a lot of really positive self-talk and support if there is a partner in the marriage, or if there isn't, whoever your extended support system is, that they are on board and get, or you tell them this is the way it's going to be. You build that boundary, right? Also important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick to throw in for school environments as well, like that's also so hard for kids in general, like to grasp that, to understand, to navigate that that world. Like they're told, if you're a 2E kid especially, you tend to be a little bit more rigid in thinking, and if it is you have to sit here, you have to listen to these rules in school, they're going to question it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that actually comes to the advocacy point where 2E kids struggle to advocate for themselves. I remember when one of my kids was in elementary school and she really needed to chew gum. It was like an attention thing. And the rule at school was you cannot chew gum. I'm sure it was to go toward that understanding. It was because somebody had dropped gum on the floor, it made a mess, whatever. So it became a rigid rule. So sometimes grownups who really, really, really want kids to be flexible are really, really rigid about it, you know? So I remember saying to the teacher, well, why would my kid get that privilege? I don't want to be different. I don't want to whatever. You shouldn't treat them whatever. And they were like, you know what, Julie, some people wear glasses and some people don't. And some people need something and some people don't. And your kiddo needs to chew gum and that's okay. And it was like, wow, what a concept, you know, way back when.
Well, I mean, but we all have to start our learning journeys somewhere. You know, and that's why I think people like you and I, like, we put a lot of resources out there. You know, you said you've got a free newsletter, you've got your communities, because like when you decide to start this journey, it's like trying to climb a mountain. You're like, how could I ever get to the top of this? Well, nobody gets to the top of a mountain by themselves. Right? You bring gear, you bring guide, you watch YouTube videos, you read maps, you use people and resources to climb that mountain. So wherever you are in your 2E journey, listeners, like, there is a community waiting to receive you and support you and help you help your kiddo, because that's why we all get up in the morning.
Right. I always say there are a lot of professionals who work with kids. And most professionals really don't want or don't like working with parents. Let's just be candid. I love working with parents. And it's really important, parents, to have not only a professional like Dr. Matt or like me, but also to have a cadre, a community of people where it's safe for you to let it all hang out, which means on both sides, to be able to say that your 3-year-old is reading, to be able to say that, you know, your 10-year-old's in college, but also to say, oh my freaking God, there are days I hate my kid. That's really important to do that in a safe space and to have people go like, I totally know what you're saying. And the same goes for 2E adults, to have that space. I mean, you know, Matt, you know, and you've been an awesome expert in my Haystack membership, called the Haystack because it's hard to find 2E adults. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And that whole finding a needle in a haystack is the same for parents. It really is so important to be able to find people like Dr. Matt is talking about, who you can relate with and share and address some of the loneliness of parenting 2E kids or being 2E, for sure.
Well, Julie, we could clearly talk to you forever and ever and ever, but I know you've got clients coming up. So what we're going to start going to our wrap up questions. Jake, you want to take the lead on that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So curious about what you're going to say for this one, but what's your favorite word and why?
Okay. This is actually timely, guys.
Ooh, okay.
This is what popped into my brain. So we had the privilege of traveling this summer quite a bit. And one of the words I learned was, this is such a funny thing, was a Hebrew word, mushlam. Mushlam means perfect. And the kids say mush as the shortcut for mushlam, telling you more information than you asked. We are adopting a dog in 3 days, and we're going to call him Moosh. So I'm going with mushlam, which means perfect, which normally would not be a word I would choose because of perfectionism, but it's just such a fun word to say, moosh. Now, if you want me to answer the question in a way that actually is my favorite word before I traveled, I would have to take a second and think about it.
I think moosh is a great word, by the way.
Well, I love moosh, but I don't want to encourage perfectionism. As I said it, I was like, oops, that's not what I want. That's not my message. But I do love that word. And I love that we're going to call our dog that word. But I guess I'm going to have to go with the word heart, because I think it's really important to be heart-centered, meaning I think it's important to consider a person's heart when you're speaking to them or about them. I think it's important to consider your heart when you are responding. Or Matt, you and I have talked about our disease where we have the we can't say no disease, right? So you really have to take your heart into consideration there. And I think having a strong heart is probably the greatest strength of 2E people, and so important to recognize.
Both words are great.
Mm-hmm. I also love that, like, perfect, if it's shortens to like perf, as people say sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great, Jake.
So I'm almost imagining you, like, your dog being named, like, if you translate it into English, like, just being named Perf the whole time.
Right, the veterinarian.
Right.
It's time for Perf to come in. Yep.
There's something like a little lovely about like taking a word that means perfect and tweaking it, right? Making a perfect thing imperfect is kind of inside outing it, which I really love.
Yeah, I like that perspective.
Now, Julie, as for me, I may have, showed my hand on this earlier, but if you could have any superhero on speed dial, who would it be and why?
Dude, you did not tell me that before.
I did call you Wonder Woman earlier. That's what I was thinking about.
That's true. And big fan of Gal Gadot for sure. Who's the guy in Star-Lord?
Love it.
What's the movie? What are those movies?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, Guardians. That's my fave. That's my fave. But he's like such a dude, man. Although, you know what? Drax too. He's like so autistically perfect, right? He's Muslim, baby. That guy is so literal. Okay, but I have to go with Star-Lord, not just because of the biceps, but because he's scrappy and he came from trauma and struggle, and he's loyal and fun and funny and uses music to regulate his emotions. So I'm all about Star-Lord. Has anybody ever said Star-Lord?
Nope, you're the first Star-Lord. In fact, shouts to my buddy Dr. Nas, who on his podcast, he has someone to like pick a piece of media and explain how it matches the neurodivergent world. So I picked the show New Girl, but I almost picked Guardians of the Galaxy because like Star-Lord is perfectly ADHD and Drax is perfectly autistic. Gamora is perfectly perfectionistic, type A, oldest daughter syndrome. Like, and Groot is Groot. We love that. Great answer. Julie, we've covered a lot of ground today. We could talk to you for hours and hours. What word of wisdom would you like to send our audience home with?
So, Dr. Matt, your beloved podcast is listened to by a whole panoply of stakeholders. So, what I like to say to parents is you are the just right parent for your child. And in fact, in my faith, we think that children choose their parents. So that match is already made, and you are made to teach your child whatever you're made to teach them, but they're made to teach you lots of things too. I would want teachers to think the same thing. And I guess, life is not about that plateau where things are easy, where it seems like, what is your goal in life? Well, my goal in life is to get to a place where I can just chug along and everything's easy and I don't have to really worry, and I don't have perfectionism, and I'm not stressed and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not life. That's the afterlife, right? That's when things settle down. The life is meant for the struggle. It's meant for not what happens, but how you handle it. So I'm going to juxtapose those two things that I firmly believe people are in the roles they're meant to be in, and that the struggle is not only okay, but it's actually what makes life worth living.
That whole Camus myth of Sisyphus must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Well, I suppose, but I think Sisyphus maybe needed to stop the pattern. Just gonna say,
Fair.
Can we get through one podcast where you don't bring up Camus? Please, I mean.
Can't.
Talk about a tongue twister. Myth of Sisyphus. Say that 5 times fast. Goodness.
It's a great essay. I'm just saying.
I have no doubt. Every time I think my knowledge is too esoteric, Jake says words, and I'm like, bro, words.
Guys, I said the word panoply. Come on, give me some props.
I wish that we could set up our podcast like pop-up video, whereas like when someone says like an absurd word, it's like panoply, yay!
I love that.
Someday. All right. Well, Julie, you are a delight, and you're doing such amazing work in the field. We talked about the haystack. We talked about with understanding comes calm, and you're an easy person to find. And I'm sure we will see more of you and talk to you again, hopefully in the future, because you're just always an amazing person to talk to.
Thank you, Matt. Right back at you.
Yeah, the feeling is more than mutual. So for all of us here at Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, stay moosh. Well, we love you as you are. Thanks for learning with us and learning from us. And as always, for trusting us with your time. We had a great time today. Jake, you want to send us out?
Definitely. Always good to be here. Always good to hear from everybody. Julie, thank you so much for being here. It was amazing to hear from you and talk with you. And just like hear all of your experience, your life, everything.
My pleasures. Thank you. So fun to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Have a good one, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Nerding Out on Neurodiversity is brought to you by Dr. Matt Zakreski and the team at the Neurodiversity Collective. To learn more about the Neurodiversity Collective or to be a guest on the podcast, please visit our website at www.theneurodiversitycollective.com/podcast. Audio and production by Jake Noonan. Show your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about us. Our Instagram and social media handles are at #NoonPodcast, NOON podcast. Your support is appreciated and keeps us going. All discussions presented on this podcast are strictly for informational purposes, awareness, and understanding. The advice presented is not and should not be considered to be therapeutic in nature. If you have any mental health questions, please contact your provider. All rights reserved.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.